Hey, what's going on, guys? Phil here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Mechwarrior 5 mod that I think you're going to love as much as I do. But before we get into the details of the mod, or who created it, wink, Navid, of course, let's go and talk about a topic out there that I feel is just sort of like the Annihilator in the room. Oh, did I mean Annihilator? I meant the Atlas. I meant the Grasshopper. Pretty much every single mech in Mechwarrior Online, and of course Mechwarrior 5, as something that's just always bothered me. The excess scale factor of 9,000. Now, to be fair, scale in Battletech has always been one of those like weird topics to discuss because you're talking about a tabletop representation as far as a line drawing to the real world implications of bringing it into a 3D environment to where scale, proportions, all really matters. So on the topic as far as scale, one of the things that always sort of concerned me in Mechwarrior Online, which is transferred over to Mechwarrior 5, is the scaling of mechs. Now, at the start, this really wasn't a big issue as far as we had the Atlas back in the day, the Hunchback, the Catapult, and the Jenner. But as the timeline progressed and we went forward and new designs were brought in, one of the things was very clear. Mechs were getting bigger and bigger and taller and wider, and sometimes it just led to, well, mechs not being used. Now, this was sort of rectified a little bit with some of the mechs getting rescaled. And by rescaled, I meant the Catapult got shrunk down a lot, and the Locust did too, and there was a few others, but to be fair, it was really weird, and there didn't seem to be any reason or rhyme of why one mech and not the other. Well, when it comes to gameplay, the reason I feel like scale is such an important topic is because of the gameplay implications. The bigger the mech is, the easier it is going to be able to focus fire on one particular section of it, and or to just make it easier to hit. Now, you could say, well, Mechwarrior Online had quirks to, well, compensate for that. But my question is, why do you have to compensate for anything? Why not just shrink down the mechs to the appropriate scale? Well, what is the appropriate scale? Well, of course, I feel like that's subjective to some extent. Some people feel like we should have these monstrosities as tall as Gundams or Pacific Rim. And even interpretations as far as artwork and harebrained schemes, BattleTech, some of the cinematics almost made the mechs seem gigantic. Which, of course, these mechs are big, but are they Godzilla fighters? Are they supposed to be fighting kaiju? No. If anything in the novels and the TROs talks about is the fluidity of movement and the size. Yes, they were big, but they weren't monstrosity big. They weren't taking on Godzilla in a 101, bar brawl, which the Annihilator could do. Another thing to sort of talk about as far as scale is the implications in Mechwarrior 5. You ever noticed how tight a fit that Annihilator is? Would you even be surprised if I told you it was even shrunk down from what it was in MWO just to fit into the Leopard class dropship and be able to extract through those bay doors? What if I told you mechs were supposed to be smaller? What if I told you that the mechs being smaller would also make your eye catch on to more details in the battlefield? You'd get more cover. You'd get a better sense of scale. You wouldn't seem like this sort of disconnected pilot in this gigantic behemoth than you were into a, oh, hey, I understand now the size of me versus an infantry, or me versus a truck, or me versus a smaller mech. What if I told you there was a solution? Well, of course, as I mentioned before, that's what we're going to be diving into. In front of you, you have an Atlas, an Annihilator, a Shadowhawk, and a Grasshopper. Now, it doesn't seem too out of place at first, until you look down, of course, and you see the humans walking around. Now, this is true scale. Those are 3D models of humans walking around. Now, the base unit, as far as most human characters, are around 2 meters tall. So 2 meters tall, my cursor here is about, I would say, almost 2/3 the height. Well, if you do the math, that puts the Annihilator and Atlas at a very, very staggering 19 plus meters tall. Now, from, again, gameplay reasons, I understand why some people like the bigger, stompier. But my argument is, I don't think that's how it's supposed to be. And I think there's advantageous benefits to shrinking down the mechs. And that's exactly what we're about to take a look at. Me, on a personal level, I've wanted this to be done. And the cool thing is how Navid has set up this mod is that there's really nothing you have to do or worry about. You just play the game. Now, keep in mind, he's also looking at adjusting some of the animations to some of the mechs. Looking at you, Nightstar, King Crab, where they do the waddle. Don't understand. We'll talk about animations in another video. But let's go ahead and take a quick look at what this size difference here between the screens that are in front of you and what you're expected to see with this mod. All right, so this is your first image into the new Re-Scale. As you can see, a complete difference between the sizes of mechs. Now, it may take you a little bit to adjust. Let me tell you, I was playing around with this and I absolutely adore it. I think it's going to add so much to this game. And of course, a little part of me says I wish this was an MWO as well because of the gameplay implications. Now, if we take what we were just looking at before, and you notice the size difference here of the humans versus the mechs, the Annihilator across the board, of course, is a lot smaller. But the Annihilator and the Atlas, you can see the difference. And of course, look at the Grasshopper. Again, look how tall this is. And yes, I get it as far as the height and the mech and the width and all that. Again, scale is one of those weird things. And of course, don't get into, well, they weigh and the material science and the future, all that stuff. It's a weird conversation. And of course, we could have it in another time. But as far as the scale, what this mod does, I wanted to hop in here and demonstrate it first off and foremost. But I absolutely love it. I love the fact of now you don't seem disconnected with the size of these mechs. Now, I've got a background in tanks. That's what I did for 4 years. I know how big armored vehicles are. And I understand, again, going into the whole, well, they're not made from the same stuff. And I get that. But if you're going to have any type of realistic scale, I do think you have to look at real world examples. And when you look at main battle tanks and you look at mechs, and of course, what they were disproportionately out of place and out of context. And even the vehicles he has altered, because guess what they did? BGI upscaled the models. They literally stretched the Demolisher vertically, so the main gun wasn't a perfect circle, it was an elongated. That's all they did, is they just made it bigger. They had to do that because they made the mechs so big, the tanks looked like tiny toys, instead of going the other direction and bringing them back down.
Attention. Prepare for battle mech departure.
All right, so the first thing you're going to notice is just already the difference in the bays. The mechs actually can fit.
Online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems non.
All right, so first off, the first thing you're going to notice is that the mech and the scale here is now appropriate to where you're not barely squeezing through. And that also gives a lot of headroom for the mechs. Again, just one of those small things I really enjoy and I think is really cool. Right, let's go ahead. And the first thing you're going to notice too is now the scale of the environment around you. Trees, right? Buildings. Let's go ahead and take a look over here towards this building. This really gives you a sense of when you're inside now that, okay, that isn't a tiny, tiny vehicle, right? And if we control shift V here, we can actually hop out and take a look at the scale as far as environmental assets. And that is appropriate. Look at that. That looks amazing now. I feel like I'm a part of the environment instead of the environment just being so disconnected. Now, of course, some of you guys are saying, well, it's not, the Atlas is too small and stuff. Well, if you were a human and you were at ground level, let's just say right maybe here, and you were looking up, that still looks terrifying. It's so gigantic. Oh, let's get a little bit closer before it steps on you. Let's take a look. And by the way, you can do this easily with Control Shift V in the game. I'm just using a little Xbox controller here for those that want to capture some footage here. Let's take a look. It's still massive. That's still scary if you're this size, but now I actually feel like I'm connected to this world. Oh yeah, check out those rims. You like that? Oh yeah. But with that, now you get the fidelity of the environment. and what this means bringing it closer to the player. And that's one of the things that we always struggled with in MWO, is this disconnect of scale and sizing. And why was that? Well, one of the biggest reasons why was because you were too damn big. And because you were too damn big, you were pulled away in the seemingly scale things. Well, now that's not the case. On the note of scale, one of the things he also had to do is he had to edit all of the animations for all of the mechs. Now, this wasn't a physical animation change. It was the timing and timestamps, I believe. Sorry, Navid, if I totally butchered that. But he did adjust some of the mechs, specifically, I think, the Night Star and King Crab. And one of the things we'll talk about in a later animations video, but if you notice the waddle as far as the Atlas, now, this is actually an animation that was done correctly, and that is specifically where you have rotation in the horizontal axis of the pelvis. This allows for nice fluid movement, right? Not the side to side what you get with the king crab, because when you get that side to side momentum, they compensate with the torso in this weird wobble, so you get this. Well, and then of course the animations. Anyways, that's another video. Sorry, I digress. All right, let's go ahead hop. Oh gosh, we don't want to hop off that cliff. All right. Go this way. You also probably notice a little bit different HUD here when I switch to third person. Again, that is an updated HUD from Navid. Of course, if you haven't checked out that, but now in third person, it does move your paper doll and information over to the left side. Gets it out of the way, so you've got a nice clear viewing angle of your targets. Again, Navid, it's amazing. All right, go ahead and take a quick look here. Throw that there.
Target destroyed.
So I'm going to try not to destroy too much of the base, so we get a better sense of scale when we get a little bit closer here. But one of the things you can quickly do is you can actually, this used to not be cover. You could not use this for cover before this mod. Now you can actually, well, semi-use it for cover, but you get what I'm saying. It's still a big mech. But now that boulder is not just a little stump. It's actually cover. Let's go ahead and maneuver now into the base here. I'm gonna check this out again. Sense of scale. Okay, that's a tractor. Oh, okay. What was that? Scorpion.
Enemy destroyed.
All right, turrets now. Look at this, guys. Look at the amount of details. Right? I want infantry. Navid, make infantry happen. Look at that. Why isn't that thing rolling around shooting at me with a small caliber AC? Right? All my boys are going to start blowing up the base. To me, this feels true scale. This is what Mechwarrior Battletech is supposed to look like. Not the enormous mechs that were before. Now, I know some of you guys out there may not like this, and I totally get this, and I respect that. But just from my point of view, this is great. This is what I wanted to see. And especially with MWO and how big mechs were, I felt like, if anything, this is something that the community could tackle, and of course they already did, via blueprints and some animation adjustments in Mechwarrior 5. So Navid, great job. Guys, if you like this mod, make sure to go download it. I'll have it in the description below. Make sure to let him know what you think. Ooh, maybe some mechs. Do we have some targets about to drop here? Oh, we did. Oh, poor cicada. That's not the. This is not where you wanted to drop, bro. Oh, helps if I actually aim here. Sad panda. Oh, Hilo. Make sure to let him know when you download this mod. Give him some feedback, and of course, just want to say thank you again, guys, for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. What other mods do you really like? I have been taking a look at some of the updated ones as well. And of course, as they roll out, such as this, we will continue to post mod videos for Mechwarrior 5. If you run into any issues, make sure to let Navid know via the comments on the Nexus website. And of course, if you run into any issues as well, let him know, and I'm sure he'll get right to it. But all that being said, I've really enjoyed this. I will be using it for my streams on Wednesdays. Speaking of streaming, if you guys would like to watch live, make sure to come over to twitch.tv/NGNGTV. And of course, I'll have a link in the chat. One thing to note, there is IK here. And for those that don't know what IK is, inverse kinematics. The best way to sort of describe it here is, as you see the Atlas here and his leg and foot where it's placed, it actually will adjust. That is IK. It doesn't have full IK as far as all the way up the mech like Mechwarrior 3 sort of had, where you could like be tilted. But now, instead of the base IK of just in the feet, there's full IK in the legs, and that of course comes with this mod. It's just built in. So maybe, just maybe, PGI will also pick that one and put it in the game. But all that being said, I just want to say, wow, I'm totally blown away by this. The scale factor, look at this. I actually feel like I'm part of the battlefield now. That's amazing. That's great. And hopefully you guys feel the same way. So anyways, just want to say thank you again for watching. Make sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't done so. And of course, make sure to give Naveed all the love for all the hard work and effort he's putting in to his mods. Make sure to check this out. Until next time. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves and just pop over here. It's Raid. Hello. Oh yeah. All the destruction.
Target destroyed. That was a great showing, Commander. Our benefactor will be pleased with our success. Now get back to the dropship ASAP.
Target acquired. Target.
Hostile neutralized.
Target destroyed.